If you look at the headlines coming out of Brussels this morning, you might think this is just another routine NATO summit, another round of photo ops, another set of carefully worded communiques, another chance for world leaders to say nothing while moving their lips. But if you look closer, if you really pay attention to what is happening between Washington and Ottawa right now, you will see something that does not look like diplomacy. It doesn't look like an alliance. It looks like a heist. For years, Donald Trump has used one number to pressure Canada into submission. That number is 2%. 2% of GDP spent on defense. He demanded that Canada pay up. He demanded that Canada buy American weapons, American jets, American missile systems. He treated the northern border like a delinquent tenant who refuses to pay rent. And for years, Canada played along. They apologized. They promised to do better. They sent checks to American defense contractors. That was the old playbook. That is how you survive a Trump presidency. You pay them off, but not this week. This week, Mark Carney finally pulled out the checkbook, only he didn't write the check to Donald Trump, and he didn't write it to the Pentagon. Carney just proposed something that has Washington scrambling, generals whispering insecure phone calls, and the White House absolutely fuming. He isn't just spending money, he is rewriting how NATO pays for war. In the next few minutes, we are going to walk you through exactly what this new war bank is, why it has terrified the American delegation at this summit, and why the United States may be losing control of its own military alliance for the first time in 70 years. You are watching history shift in real time, and the part that has insiders most worried, the White House never saw it coming. Let's cut through the noise and get to the facts. Here is exactly what happened in the last 48 hours. Mark Carney stood up at the NATO summit and placed a document on the table that no one expected. Think about that for a moment. Everyone in that room assumed Canada was going to apologize. Everyone assumed Canada would promise to buy more F-35 squadrons, more American-made equipment, more of the same. That is the old playbook. That is how you survive dealing with this White House. You promise to buy American, you issue a press release, and you hope the tweets stop. Carney did not do that. Instead, he unveiled a plan for a new independent financial vehicle, a massive multilateral investment fund dedicated entirely to Arctic security and infrastructure. The media is calling it the Arctic Shield Initiative, but insiders know what it really is. It's a bank, a war bank, and here is the detail that changes everything. This fund counts fully toward Canada's 2% NATO commitment. The money is real. The spending is legitimate. The NATO Secretary General has already reviewed the proposal and confirmed it complies with alliance rules, but the money does not go to American defense contractors. It does not go to Lockheed Martin. It does not flow through Washington's approval process. It stays in the north. It funds Canadian ports, Canadian radar systems, and European satellite technology. It funds green energy grids for military bases, and crucially, the governance of this fund is not held in Washington. It is split between Ottawa, London, and Berlin. Trump demanded Canada spend billions on defense. Carney said, "Okay, we will, but we are going to spend it on our own terms. We are going to build our own assets, and we are going to cut you out of the profit margin." This is a shocking development because it takes the president's biggest weapon, the claim that allies are freeloaders who don't pay their fair share, and disarms it completely. You cannot call them freeloaders anymore. They are paying. They are just not paying you. Carney used his background as a central banker to engineer a solution that technically follows every single NATO rule, while politically humiliating the American president. And now the White House is trying to figure out if they can stop it. Spoiler alert, they probably cannot. Now you might be asking yourself, is this real? Is this actually happening? Or is this just political theater designed to generate headlines before a quiet phone call fixes everything? Let me show you the receipts, because when you look at the numbers and the reactions, you realize this is not a bluff. This is a siege. First, look at the structure of the fund itself. We have obtained leaked details from the initial proposal. The fund is capitalized at over $40 billion over the next 10 years. That is a massive injection of liquidity into Arctic defense. But look closely at the fine print regarding eligible vendors. Normally, NATO money has strings attached that favor American technology, American jets, American missiles, American command systems. This document does something different. It explicitly prioritizes what it calls sovereign northern capability. That is diplomatic language for not American. It prioritizes icebreakers built in allied shipyards In Europe or Canada, it prioritizes sensor arrays developed by Scandinavian tech firms. It prioritizes artificial intelligence surveillance systems from British companies. The message could not be clearer. Canada is spending the money, but the money is not coming to the United States. Second, watch the European reaction. Usually when President Trump attacks a NATO ally, the Europeans stay quiet. They don't want to be next. But look at what happened immediately after Carney spoke. The German Chancellor did not look away. He nodded. The French delegation issued a statement within hours, welcoming what they called innovative financing for collective security. Why would they do that? Because they are tired of the same dynamic. They see what Carney is doing. He is creating a way to be pro-NATO without being pro-Trump, and they want in. This is not just Canada going rogue. This is Canada building a lifeboat, and Europe is lining up to get on board. Third, look at the defense markets. The stock market tells you the truth before politicians ever do. The moment this news broke, look at the intraday trading for major American defense primes. They dipped. Not a crash, but a wobble, a noticeable hesitation. Why? Because their growth models assume that when countries like Canada ramp up defense spending, that money flows directly to them. Carney just signaled that billions of dollars coming online may bypass the American military-industrial complex entirely. And if this model spreads, if Germany does this, if Italy does this, if Spain does this, the United States loses its guaranteed revenue stream from Europe. That is not a small thing. That is a structural shift in how the alliance finances itself. And finally, look at the visual from the summit hallway. There's a clip circulating online right now, and we have verified its authenticity. It shows the US Secretary of State trying to intercept Carney as he leaves a working session. It looks frantic. The secretary is walking quickly, gesturing, clearly trying to pull Carney aside for a private conversation. Carney stops for about 5 seconds. He listens. He gives a tight, professional smile, and then he keeps walking. That body language tells you everything you need to know. The Americans are used to giving orders in that hallway. They were asking questions, and they were not getting answers. This is the evidence. The money is moving. The allies are aligning. The markets are reacting. This is not a speech. This is a structural break in how the Atlantic Alliance works. So why is the president losing control of this situation? Why can't he just bully Mark Carney into submission the way he has bullied so many other world leaders? It comes down to a trap of his own making. The president operates on a very simple transactional model. I provide security, you pay me cash. It is a protection racket, and it works because the other person feels unsafe without you. But the president pushed too hard. He threatened to abandon NATO so many times that allies stopped believing the threat was empty. He threatened tariffs on allies so many times that they stopped believing those threats were negotiable. He forced them to come up with a plan B. He thought his threats would make Canada obedient. Instead, they made Canada creative. When you threaten a country's survival, they don't just roll over, they look for leverage. And the president is losing control because he does not understand the weapon Mark Carney is using. He understands tariffs, he understands walls, he understands insults. He does not understand sovereign wealth financing. He does not understand multi-stakeholder infrastructure bonds. He does not understand how to counter a central banker who speaks in risk models and liquidity ratios. Carney is fighting a 21st century economic war, and the president is bringing a rusted trade war toolbox from the 1980s. Think about the timeline here. The president threatens 25% tariffs if Canada does not tighten the border. Canada tightens the border. Then the president says it's not enough, pay more for defense. Canada says, okay, we will pay for defense. Every time the president demands something, he loses a piece of goodwill. He loses a piece of trust. And now he is in a corner he cannot easily escape. If he criticizes Canada's new war bank, he looks like he is against NATO defense spending. How can he attack a country for spending billions on security? He can't. He trapped himself. He demanded they spend the money. He just assumed they would spend it on him. You can see the frustration in his recent social media posts. He is calling it a scam. He is calling it fake accounting. But the problem is, the NATO Secretary General has already reviewed the proposal. It counts. It is legal. It is valid. The president can shout at the referee all he wants, but the scoreboard has already changed, and the world is watching. Other leaders are taking notes. They see that presidential leverage is not absolute. They see that if you are smart, if you are technical, and if you are bold, you can walk right past the White House. This is the real danger for this administration. It is not just about Canada. It is about the fear factor. Once the fear is gone, the power evaporates. Mark Carney is not just building a bank. He is breaking the spell of American intimidation. We need to talk about why Mark Carney is the only person who could have pulled this off. If this had been Justin Trudeau, the conversation would have been about values, about feelings, about a lecture on morality, and the president would have eaten that alive. He loves crushing moral lectures. But Carney is different. He is not a politician in the traditional sense. He is a central banker. He ran the Bank of England. He ran the Bank of Canada. He deals in risk, liquidity, and systemic stability. He does not fight like the president fights. He does not get into a mudslinging contest on social media. He does not use adjectives. He uses systems. Watch his demeanor in these summit meetings. He is calm. He is almost boring. And that is a weapon. When the president is screaming about betrayal, Carney is calmly explaining the yield rates on infrastructure bonds. It makes the president look unhinged. It makes Carney look like the adult in the room. Carney's move is different because it is based on sovereignty. He is not asking for permission. He is asserting Canada's right to defend itself in its own way. He is tapping into a deep Canadian desire to be independent. For decades, Canada has been the little brother, tagging along with whatever the United States wanted. Carney is saying, no, we have the Arctic, we have the minerals, we have the capital, and we are going to lead. He is turning pressure into leverage. The president pressured Canada to act, and Carney used that pressure to launch a project that benefits Canada for the next 50 years. This is not a short-term fix to make a tariff go away. This is a long-game strategy to build Canadian power in the north. And notice the coalition building. Carney did not do this alone. He spent months talking to London. He spent months talking to Berlin. He lined up his allies before he fired the shot. The president fires and then looks to see who is still standing. Carney aims, checks the wind, checks the backup, and only then does he move. That is why this feels so dangerous for the White House. They are used to chaotic enemies. They do not know how to handle a competent one. Let's zoom out for a moment. Why should you care about this? Why does a defense bank in Ottawa matter to your wallet, your job, or your future? Because this is the signal that the world is fragmenting. For 70 years, the West was one big bloc led by Washington. The US dollar was king. American weapons were the standard. American protection was the guarantee. That era is ending. Right now you are watching it end. When your closest neighbor and largest trading partner decides they cannot trust you with their defense money, the system is broken. If Canada pulls away from the American defense ecosystem, supply chains will shift. We are talking about manufacturing jobs. We are talking about where steel is bought, where microchips are sourced, and where software is developed. If this war bank funds a new tech corridor in Ontario and Quebec, instead of buying from Ohio and Texas, that is real money leaving the American economy. It means prices could get weird. As trade barriers go up and cooperation goes down, the efficiency of the North American economy breaks. But deeper than that, it affects your sense of safety. The United States and Canada monitor the skies together. They watch the oceans together. If the political trust shatters, the security umbrella gets holes in it. The president thinks he can go it alone. He thinks America first means America only. But look at a map. You cannot defend North America without Canada. You simply cannot. The Arctic is too big. The coastline is too long. By alienating Canada, the president is creating a vulnerability in his own backyard. And for you watching,